Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar, IMIM webinar for 2022. Today, our topic is going to be about innovators, accelerators, and startup builders in Europe. So today, we're very happy to have here Professor Paolo Landoni from Politecnico di Torino. And in this webinar, he's gonna talk about what are these incubators, accelerators, and startup builders in the entrepreneurial ecosystems in Europe, which are the differences among them, the typologies, and some figures and data about Europe. So thank you, Paolo, for accepting the invitation. So Paolo is an associate professor from Politecnico di Torino. He teaches topics related to innovation and entrepreneurship, and he's a coordinator in our IMIM program for Politecnico di Torino, which is one of the partner universities that we'll talk later about. So he has a very impressive and extensive curriculum. So you can find more about him on LinkedIn. And here are just some, main things that he has conducted. So he teaches in Polito, also in MBA and Executive programs. He conducts a lot of research related to innovation, entrepreneurship, especially with social innovation, which is, if I understand correctly, how this project started, with the incubators and accelerators. So he will talk more about this. He has also published many books and journal papers, and he also provides consultancy services, coaching, mentoring to different companies around the world related to innovation and entrepreneurial strategies. So we're very happy to have him here, and we expect to learn a lot from him. Remember that you can always participate at any time, okay? Like you can write down your questions on the chat, and or you can always activate your microphone as well, and along the way. We will have, however, a final Q&A, but you can also participate along the time. So very briefly, for the people who are new, and I see more people joining now, to the IMIM program, we are as a master program that is studied in many universities, okay? And we provide training in business and managerial skills. So this program has existed since 2004, and we have also been recognized 2 times with the Erasmus Mundus label from the European Commission for these top educational programs. Currently, we are 5 universities that are in the consortium. So we have the Politecnico University of Madrid, which I'm representing today. Also, we have Politecnico di Torino, where Paolo currently works. We have Herod Watt University with 2 campuses, one in Edinburgh and one in Dubai, in the Arab Emirates. We also have the Northwestern Politecnical University in China, that is located in Xi'an, the previous capital of China. And we also have the Monterrey Tech in Mexico, participating with 3 campuses in Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. So basically, for people who are interested on studying this, as Alejandro, who connected before and has just told us that he just applied, is that students start in Madrid, in UPM. So they get the first foundational courses on management. Then they continue to Herod Watt University in Edinburgh, where currently our other guests here, Pablo, Sarah, Roman, are studying at the moment, to continue with further courses on management. And then students choose a specialization. So if they want to study things related to supply chains, they go to Dubai, or engineering and finance, they go to Torino in Italy, doing business with China and some operations management to MPU. And finally, things related to data science and innovation, they go to the Monterrey Tech. And the last semester, students, they decide to do an internship, or also, to conduct their company-based master thesis, or directly work in one of the university projects, a bit more of a research-oriented master, and this could be done anywhere in the world. So if you know somebody, or you yourselves are interested on this program, please feel free to share the information and spread the word. We have students coming mainly for all around the world. We expect this to be back. It has been different the last 2 years because of the pandemic, but we expect that now things are going back to normality. And usually our graduates, they work in a variety of industries and with top employers. So here's just a brief list of some of these sectors and names. And well, I think from my side, that would be it. So I want to welcome you again to this IMIM webinar. And I will give now the floor to Professor Landoni so he can start his presentation.
Thank you very much, Isaac. And let me try to upload my slides, first of all. Yes, it should work like this. So I hope you are able to see them now. Are you?
Yes, yes, we can.
That's great. So I will quickly introduce what are incubators, accelerators, and startup builders or startup studios. And I will mention some numbers in Europe and in the world from our research. And even if this is not an academic presentation or research presentation, but more something to give some introduction to the topic, I will also present a couple of papers that we have recently written or we are still writing, and to give some more info on a couple of topics in which we are contributing to the definitions of these organizations. So again, it's research, but it's also, I think, useful for the ones interested in understanding better how it works. So first of all, let me quickly say that I'm part of an international research team, and also Isaac is with us. I'm very happy about this. It's called Social Innovation Monitor, and is an international research team focused on social innovation, social entrepreneurship, incubation, acceleration. So many of the data also that we provide comes from the research of this group, that this group does academic research, applied research, and also some consulting and training with the data that we have collected. And I think this is interesting for the ones listening, because we have a website in which you can download for free some report, and especially we have reports on incubators and accelerators in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK. So if you are interested in some data about these countries, and also we have a report on Europe, you can find them online together with other reports, again for free, on our other research topics. But let's talk about incubators and accelerators, and I will then talk about startup studios or startup builders, and finally into some results of our research. So incubators and accelerators, first of all, in theory, there is a distinction between the two. And again, in theory, business incubators incubate, that's the idea, ideas that are, or early stage projects. So it's the very beginning, like the incubator for babies. And whilst business or seed accelerators accelerate the growth of existing companies. Some authors suggest also other differences. In our reports, you can read the discussion about this, but in practice, both incubators and accelerators decide by themselves what they want to do, and sometimes they do both. Sometimes they do just one of these two activities, or these two, or they select a different focus. So in practice, it's very difficult to distinguish them, and they can call themselves as they prefer. And we also see some differences among different countries. So in some countries, one term is more used, the other is less used, and they have also different meanings in different countries. But in the end, I think that a useful definition that we also have introduced in our paper of 2020, and the ones we use in our report, is the following: an incubator accelerator is an organization that actively supports the process of creating and developing new innovative businesses through a series of services and resources offered either directly or through a network of partners. So again, there could be differences when they select to support the ideas, if they have classes or not, if they obtain equity or not, but in the end, they all support new innovative businesses, and sometimes new businesses that are not so innovative. And a little bit of history. Again, also here I have some question marks, because who knows exactly what happened and when, but if you look it up, and if you look at the literature, normally these two are considered the first. The first business incubator, the Italia Industrial Center in New York, 1959. And basically the idea was really in the beginning just to offer some offices and support and help. And sometimes this is what is still done nowadays. And instead, Y Combinator, very famous, again, in the US, 2005. This is called Accelerator. And what is sure about Y Combinator is that the process is shorter. So they have a limited amount of months. They are also highly selective. And after these 3 months, normally you are out. And either you manage to accelerate, or you didn't. And in one case, you will receive funds, and in the other, you will not receive funds. I also want to underline that there are a number of categories nowadays inside incubators and accelerator. And from now on, I will talk about the incubators, but again, incubators / accelerators, if you want. One interesting category is the category of university incubators. Many incubators were developed by university to support students or professors or PhD students or PhD graduate. And so we have introduced this definition. It's university incubator when it has one of the following: more than 50% of the equity, majority of votes, controls of the board of director or the president. So there are a number of ways in which the relationship with the university can be established, but normally they have a strong focus on technologies, students, and researchers of that university. Another interesting category is the category of corporate incubators. Also, this one is more recent, or it's growing, and as the name suggests, it's about a company, normally a big company, that creates inside or just outside, let's say, of the company, an incubator or accelerator. Normally, they both support the birth of companies related to their core competencies, technologies, etc., and do some scouting of external companies, startups, and ideas. So also here there are a number of different models that can be adopted. There are also other categories, but we can take this for another time. What I will talk about is the category of social incubators, but in a moment, just introducing one of my papers. Some numbers. It's difficult to come up with numbers for the whole world in this case, but we are working on this with some partners. It is definitely growing because in all countries is growing. So difficult to understand how many there are in all countries, but in each country, but it's growing because we have multiple indication of this. From our research, we did an analysis in a number of countries, as I previously said, and it seems that there are, as you can see, 200 and something in most European countries, the big European countries. So France, 284, UK 274, Germany 247, etc. And these numbers again seem growing. In Italy, we did this also last year, and the number is higher. And we are doing this with ISAC in Spain, and so we will know soon about this number in Spain. And we are also working on the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the Netherlands and in Ireland, and we will have the number soon. And more or less, the number are, of course, related to the population or the number of firms, and are coherent with the numbers that you can see here. So let's talk briefly about startup studios. And this is a more recent phenomenon if you consider business incubators from the 60s. Startup studios are, or startup builders are slightly different because these are organizations that create and develop startups, acting as a founder or co-founder. So the difference is that they normally have a considerable share of equity capital and a significant influence. So they are not just renting space and supporting, mentoring, but it's really they feel and they act as owners of these companies. So again, as founders or co-founders. And as you can see, there are a number of different names that can be used to define these organizations: venture studio, venture lab, startup nursery, etc. And in this case, probably, again, probably, we could not be sure, but probably the first is Idea Lab in 1996 in the US. They are still creating a number of startups today. And it's interesting to note that they do this frequently. So they do not focus on just one startup, but they create several startups in parallel. So again, it could seem similar to incubators and accelerator, but the difference is that they select the idea, they normally push the idea forward after an analysis of the market. So again, it's more active than reactive. And this has some pros and some cons, of course. Numbers, we did a research on this, and we estimated that there are 420 startup studios in the world, and also this model is growing. But again, it's way more limited than the model of incubators and accelerator. And again, to give you an example, we have 15 startup studios in Italy in 2021. Again, our estimate is that this is growing. They were only 10 in 2020, and we expect similar numbers in other countries, and we are looking into it, and we'll let you know if you are interested. Finally, some of our recent research, but here I can point you to the papers. So if you are interested, we will be happy to share these papers with you. First of all, we are finalizing a paper on startup studios and incubators and accelerators. And as you can see here, we are introducing and proposing this table that highlights the main differences. I think there are no papers on startup studios, scientific papers, not books or white papers, but this is the first, hopefully, if we manage to have it published soon, paper on the topic. And here you can see some of the things that I already described, but also some new one about the supporting period, the cohorts, the type of support, and the venture stage. And then we have written, this is published, a paper on social incubators. So I didn't talk about social incubators yet. This is a category of incubators and accelerators, and we have introduced this taxonomy, or we have defined this taxonomy based on our research. And our taxonomy introduced in this paper is simple. Basically, we have favored a focus on the startups that are incubated or accelerated, because if you define, if you think about the organization and the kind of support provided, it's very difficult to distinguish the different organizations. So we focused on the supported organizations, and basically we divide among business incubators that do not support startup with a significant social or environmental impact, social incubators that support mainly more than 50% of startups with a social or environmental impact. And then there are mixed incubators that have some of these startups, but they don't have a focus on these startups. So they have supported some of them, but they are not focused on that. And then with Davide Moro, that I see here also attending, we also worked also with other co-authors on incubators and accelerators in developing countries or low-income countries. We did a number of interviews on of this kind of organization in Cameroon, Senegal, and Uganda, and also here we are introducing a new taxonomy, and quick, you can see it in these slides, but the main point here, mapping these organizations, is that in these countries, social incubators are not just the ones having, let's say, supporting organization with a social or environmental impact. But the importance of incubators and accelerators in these countries is even higher, because they really they can really promote entrepreneurship. They can foster the development of the economy, and so we believe this is an important dimension to consider. So we have both the dimension of the projects or the startup supported and the dimension of the people supported. Here we also consider the support to disadvantaged people. This is it for today, but again, if you want the paper, or if you want, you can download the reports from our website. And I don't know if you recognize this Italian sign. That means, do you have questions? Or what are you saying? And so if you have questions, they are more than welcome.
Yeah, I got a question. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, you have spoken about the incubators and accelerators mostly in the European context. But what do you think about, like, because maybe the countries of the Southeast Asia have as Europe, will be like more interesting to develop them there?
Unfortunately, we don't have data, and I didn't see a lot of research about incubator and accelerator in Asia or Southeast Asia. So I cannot be sure about the answer to your question, but we did some research also in Canada. We did some research in South America. We started to do this, and more or less, I dare say that the models are more or less the same in developed countries or emerging economies. And I think that the distinction is between developing countries and the others. So what this is the reason why we did this research I just presented. So that if the economy is not well developed, then incubators, accelerator, and startup studio are different. If the economy is developed or well developed, then probably they share a lot of characteristics that we have already studied in Europe and that we are observing in Canada, etc.
Thank you.
No problem. And if you don't seem to be from Southeast Asia or similar, are you? Because we are looking for partners in other countries. As I was saying, we have created this international research team, and one of the ideas is to have collaborations to expand the research in different countries, because it's very useful to have someone on the ground knowing the differences and knowing also the incubator accelerators, etc., to obtain answers to the questionnaires. So if you know someone, researchers, I mean, or professor from one of those countries, they are welcome to join in this effort.
Perfect. Thank you for the question, Alejandro. Do we have more questions?
Yeah, I have a question, if I can.
Yep.
First of all, thank you for your time, Paolo. It was a nice presentation. And I wanted to ask, I was really interested in this entrepreneurial environment. So I did an internship in my incubator from my university in Valencia. And one of the main problems we faced there was that many people preferred to start their own business on private investors, like, for example, Lanzadera. I don't know if you know it. It's from Juan Roch in Spain. Is really famous there. And the problem is that on the long run, they own part of the business if it's success. So they interfere in the decisions you have to make for your own company. So it's really kind of, I don't know, controversial because you don't own the company. Obviously they are investing, so they expect some profit, but I don't know. I want to know, what would you recommend to start from private and financing, like these accelerators that are financing you, or on the other hand, like some incubators from the university, which is a public institution, so they cannot pay you or invest in you, but they are like giving the tools necessarily, but in the
Yeah,
long run,
as I was saying, nowadays in Europe, the US, the most developed countries, so also in Spain, I think that there is a model that is the traditional one now. That is, if you have a startup that is a company with some potential, you normally look for investors to grow. So I would not see this as a problem. Having investors is, again, it's the norm now. Of course, investors that do not take up the majority of your company, and again, it depends in which phase you are. In the very beginning, it could be a couple of percentages of the equity of the company, then maybe a little bit more. It depends, but not a lot. But to provide you the resources for growth. You can also bootstrap, so do this without resources, but normally you need them to grow. So I don't see this as a problem, and I don't see as a problem the fact that some incubators require some equity or some payment for their services, because they also have to be sustainable. Again, it has to be a small percentage, but also the best, or one of the best, that is Y Combinator is adopting this model. So they are taking equity, and it's not a problem. Of course, if you don't need the money, do without.
Yeah.
And if you don't need acceleration, or you find great incubators that do not ask you for equity, it could be a good option. So I'm not saying to give away your equity, but I don't see it as a problem, especially for some startups, and if the value provided to them is significant.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I have another question, if possible.
Yeah.
For these startup studios, what's the final purpose of for the startups that they create? Like, they always try to exit when the startup, if it's successful, of course, when it reaches a determined size or a determined value, or they kind of, depending on the company, grow with the company, or which is the normal procedure?
There are a number of different startup studios and different approaches, but normally they try to stay there, to remain invested for as long as possible if they see potential for growth. So would you sell something that you know or you believe that will be huge? No, you don't, unless of course you need the money for other investments, other activities. So I think again, in theory, they are happy to stay there as long as possible, provided that the company is growing. But they have different models. Some of them try to exit as soon as possible, also to reinvest, and others stay more.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Right, do we have more questions? Doubts, comments? I do have a question, Paolo.
But you didn't say it to me before.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be that fun, no?
He's gone.
And actually, I was last week talking with the Madrid Council, actually because I was inviting them for the research, etc. And then, so they were telling me Spain is having a new law that is called the startup law. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Actually, they are also proposing this to the European Union. And this law has a lot of benefits for startups in terms of, let's say, lowering the taxes, or even eliminating the taxes for the first years, 3 to 5 years, depending on certain conditions. Also providing further mechanisms to get funding, to make them grow, etc. So, for example, now the Madrid Council, they have their own, they call them technology centers, but actually they provide accelerator and incubator services. And they expect an increase of demand on the services, okay? And so part of the questions that I told them that I was gonna get back to them is like, which is exactly the role in the entrepreneurial ecosystems for these accelerators, for these incubators? Is there now, for example, that they expect this, increase on demand? Which one should they foster? Because they also provide things after the accelerator, even before the incubator, even for people to generate ideas, and they do not know where to focus. And I think that I would like to know your insights, let's say, about this question, and we're talking about Madrid or a country or whatever.
I think that the entrepreneurial ecosystem is as different actors, and the start is the education from high school to universities. Universities, both the courses, both the, let's say, executive education, and then of course there are incubators, accelerators, and I think that all of them are really important. So I would not say that there is the need of a focus on one in particular. I think that all of them has to function properly, including the financial system related to entrepreneurship, so business angels, and then later venture capitalists. And if it's like a funnel, if you want. So you have a number of students and ideas, and then you will have some startups, some projects, etc. So I think everything has to work well. And in my opinion, right now, what is not working very well, at least in Italy and maybe a little bit in Europe, is the financial part and the market. So in the US, they have 300 millions of users with the same rules, with the same everything. So it's a single market. In Europe, the market is more fragmented, and this is a first disadvantage for our startups. And the other problem, let's say, is the availability of capital for the most promising companies. So if you see the numbers of the investments in the US and also in China and in Europe, they're different. So I think this is the part of the ecosystem in which I would focus more attention, whilst in my opinion, incubator and accelerator are doing, they can always do better, but I mean, there are, and they are answering also to a request from the market, if you want. So there are more startups, more ideas, and so some new incubators and accelerators are being born, and some of them are better and some of them are less good, of course, as always, but I think this part of the ecosystem is evolving, and it's been also supported by a number of laws. So let's see, but we have to study this more to come up with new insights and suggestions also.
Yeah, thank you for your feedback on this. Well, I think we are arriving to the end. I'm not sure if there is maybe time for a final question before, or something else you would like to add, Paolo?
No, just this invitation, if someone is interested in reading the papers or downloading the reports, they're welcome, and also joining us in this effort of mapping these ecosystems worldwide.
Actually, well, I think Fernando Lead, maybe I'm not sure if he's able to speak. He's an alumni from IMIM. I think he's doing his PhD right now in Holland, but he's from the Philippines. So maybe he could also, look for Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
I will see some contacts in Singapore, but maybe, Philippines could also be there.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, hi, Isaac. I don't have any connections to anyone in the business field in the Philippines yet, because this is actually a very new field for me. So actually, most of my connections are people based in the Netherlands. But yeah, I think it's very interesting research. And I'm also actually looking at some startups, specifically in the circular economy. That's why I joined the webinar. Yeah. But all my samples so far has been people in Europe, so the Netherlands, and some people from Eastern Europe who moved to the Netherlands. Yeah, but if I find anyone, I will let you know.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Fernando. And well, just to finalize this, I just want to let you know about our next webinar. This is going to be hosted or co-hosted with MPU, our partner university in China, and it's going to be about how China is targeting to achieve this carbon neutral objective. So it's going to be provided by Jin Xiao, who is the coordinator there. Also, we have other webinars that might be interesting for you to look at. So here is the link. You can look IMIM in YouTube, or International Master in Industrial Management as keywords. And you can also look our series. We conducted 11 webinars last year. So they are available online with different topics. Other than that, thank you very much. Especially thank you to Paolo Landoni, who shared with us this interesting research that he has been conducting with his research team. Also, thank you everyone for connecting, for your interest, your enthusiasm, participation. And we invite you to be connected with our IMIM ecosystem, as we like to call it. We have, of course, a newsletter. Many of you are subscribed, but you can also send us an email to imim@industriales.upm.es. And we have a Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn account, and it's very easy to find us, just with Master IMIM or Master IMIM. And the link, the YouTube channel that I already mentioned before. Okay, so on behalf of our 5 partner universities, thank you very much for joining our webinar, and we stay in touch, and hopefully we will see you very soon.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for the management of this webinar and the introduction.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.